there's one sort of organization that for those of us who are aware of the broader socioeconomic and political dynamics impacting the carnivore world and the keto world and the broader proper human diet space, there's one sort of organization looming over everything. And I say looming because they take up a lot of space in terms of the influence they exert and the power they have and their ability to manipulate things with political and governmental entities. And that is the World Economic Forum. A lot of people who talk about this on YouTube tend to come across more, as pushing for really kind of weird ideas about the role they're having in things, and for good reason. The World Economic Forum says a lot of weird things and advocates for a lot of weird things. And frankly, those so-called fringier topics out there may actually be correct. But we're going to focus here just on something they're saying here today, which is they have this article where if you just read the headline, if this was shared on your Facebook feed and you did what 99% of people on Facebook do, they read a post by just looking at the headline of an article, but they don't actually read the article, you'd think they were right. What they talk about here is really something that's astonishing, which is that they want to empower small farmers, essentially, which is a good thing. I 100% agree. Empower small farmers. They want to do it through mechanisms, centralization of power. And they want to do it through centralization of power in their partner organizations. They tend to be big business and, of course, big government, which if you're in the carnivore space, those two things tend to be your adversaries, at least when it comes to food. So let's take a look at this article. It's a headline from the World Economic Forum's own website from their talks in Davos in 2023. Smallholder farmers could help fix global food systems with the right technology. Here's how. All right, so this was published just a few days ago, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now. And, they say some good things here because almost no one out there is wrong 100% of the time on anything, unless you really are a believer that fast food is good for you and it wouldn't be legal to eat fast food or to sell fast food if it was bad for you because the government has our best interests at heart. If you still believe that, I can't help you. But most people who are aware of problems in the world aren't 100% wrong on 100% of things most of the time. So let's take a look at this article here. From it, quote, smallholder farmers are the heart of the global food system, producing over 1/3 of the food we eat. Yet for many of the world's 600 million smallholder farmers, farming is no longer a sustainable livelihood. Farmers are leaving their communities to pursue alternative livelihoods, adding to the weight of challenges already facing our food system, like geopolitical conflicts, after effects of the 2020 problem, and worsening thermometer problems, allegedly, putting food security at risk. Already, nearly 10% of the world's population suffers from hunger, and the figure is on the rise. We need to transform our global food systems to be more equitable to smallholder farmers. Farmers lack access to sufficient credit to sustain and grow their business. Technology can provide farmers with access to credit and other financial services, as well as reliable marketplaces and input providers, advisory services, and information. End quote. All that's basically true. Smallholder farmers, these are your family farms. If you drive around in middle America, America's heartland, and you see someone living on a farm producing cattle or producing plants of some kind or another, that's probably a smallholder farm. This is not the large-scale industrial farming that we think of, although in some cases, what look like a smallholding farm is actually part of the larger corporate-owned industrial food system. But the smallholder farmer is generally the good guy in all of this. They're the ones who get hammered by food regulations. America's cheap food policy tends to hurt the smallholder farmers while helping the big corporate farmers. And they're the ones who have the biggest problem in the modern food system on the producer end of things. And so all that is right. But the WEF's solution to their problems of lack of credit and all these other things is to connect them to organizations like MasterCard and Microsoft and international governing bodies to help them achieve the end of the decade goals that these bodies have arbitrarily placed on us for carbon and things. They are trying to do it because they say that global food systems account for over 1/4 of global emissions. I guess that's debated. I mean, they get to get to those numbers, as everyone who touches more of these political topics in the carnivore space will tell you, they get to those numbers through some creative accounting. That's how they get to the idea that cattle production is a giant producer of carbon, is through creative accounting. They disregard the fact that actually cattle production, when it's not done in these gross industrial settings, is actually carbon, not just carbon neutral, but carbon negative. That regenerative agriculture actually promotes all the things that they want to promote, but without the centralization of power, which is why they do give some lip service in this piece to regenerative agriculture, but at the end of the day, their solution is to increase use of technology, increase use of credit, and increase the connections to centralized authority. And they do it by, blowing a little smoke up the backsides of the farmers here. For instance, quote, "We believe that data, coupled with the farmer's knowledge and intuition about his or her own farm, can help increase farm productivity and also help reduce costs. The goal is to help enable data-driven farming and democratize AI for sustainable agriculture. This is precisely what FarmBeats is working towards. Andrew Nelson, a farmer currently testing with FarmBeats' portfolio of services, suggests that collectively these technologies are making a big impact both in his fields and his bank account. For example, the first year Nelson used data to guide his spraying, the amount he saved was exactly the amount he earned." End quote. FarmBeats is a high-tech software AI-driven program being produced by one of the WEF's big partner organizations. Remember, when we're talking about data, the other side is collecting data. They're getting all the data they've ever wanted from the farmers themselves. Remember, you might be aware of the story. A couple of years ago, it came out that they were talking about putting tracking on every grain of rice produced, every grain of oat and wheat produced, every cut of meat produced. They wanted to know where every single bit of food in the food system from start to finish went. That includes point of sale, who bought it. They want that data. This in the system will enable them to do that. If we're talking about open source, open code, blockchain technology here, where there could be reasonable protections for the farmer's privacy put in, that might be one thing. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about partnering with one of the biggest data mining organizations in all of human history, and that is Microsoft. Okay? This is centralization of power. This is to help make their end-of-decade goals that are extremely controversial for any normal person who hears what they want to do on the governing side of things, realizes that this is just taking the current system we have now, making it worse, and taking what little freedoms that are still available out of this current system. And they go on talking about how the signs of hope for the future, that we need a technology revolution. This is their new industrial revolution that they keep pushing and keep talking about. It will require broad and intentional collaboration to move the needle on food security and empower the farmers that feed the world. That's how they end it. And if you want to empower the farmers that feed the world, you've got to remove a lot of the regulations, not all of them. I am not a deregulate everything person by any stretch of the imagination. But a lot of regulations are put in by the big businesses who can afford to abide by them because they know that a lot of regulation will crush competition. So you've got to remove a lot of that stuff. You've got to create incentives for people to open up their own small-scale ranches and small-scale farms. If you've ever wondered why the price of grass-fed beef is so expensive, it's pretty straightforward. It's not because of the market demand for it, because the demand is going up. It's the ability to produce it, because you can't really produce grass-fed beef on the industrial scales, on industrial feedlots that they want. If they tried, you get a half-rate product. It'll still be better than feeding cows soy and corn to the point where they get metabolic damage that you can apparently read in their meat. That is apparently a thing now, by the way. That is apparently true. You can take beef from the grocery store, go take it to experts who know how to look at the flesh and tell that it's got metabolic damage from its standard diet that they're fed that isn't actually the species appropriate for a cow. But if you ever wonder why that beef is so expensive, why the good stuff is so expensive, it's pretty straightforward. It's because it can't be produced at scale under the current system. And the actual solution to that isn't to just throw up our hands and say, okay, fine, whatever, and just accept what we have. It's to get more people to engage in cattle ranching, to open up a lot of the fields that are used right now that the topsoil is getting worn out from decade upon decade of monoculture, shutting those down and opening them up for grazing. Do that for a couple of decades, you're going to bring that soil right back. That's the heart of regenerative agriculture, folks. And the very heart of it is a true democratization of agriculture by putting it back into the hands of normal people. They pay lip service to that here. That's what they're really good at, is paying lip service, while then saying the solution is things that can only be provided by the most powerful actors in society. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments. Please like and subscribe. If you haven't, it does help. As with sharing this on social media, it helps a lot too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in.